I got home at 10:30 p.m. on Saturday after a long day at the aircraft maintenance shop. My jacket still carried the scent of oil, and my dark shoes showed the worn marks of concrete floors. The two-bedroom apartment in the Knoxville suburbs was unusually quiet. Even though the living room light was still on and my wife's phone lay on the coffee table, its screen flashing briefly before going dark. A new notification from the banking app. I leaned forward and glanced at the screen. Under the words "transaction successful" was a number that sent blood rushing to my temples. $94,000 had been transferred from our joint savings account to a name I'd never seen before. Marissa Carter. Immediately after, a message appeared. No greeting, no explanation, just 8 cold words. I'm not coming back. We are over. I stood motionless for a long time, fingers gripping the strap of my bag so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The apartment no longer carried her voice. No familiar vanilla scent, no sharp clatter of heels echoing across the kitchen tiles. She said she'd be gone for just 4 days, a girl's yoga trip, mental detox, a break after a packed training schedule. I had believed her. I always believed her, even when things stopped making sense. Brand new athletic wear, top-tier brands, but I never once saw her wear them at home. Whispered calls in the middle of the night, ending abruptly when I walked in. Retreats, stretching close to 10 days, yet not a single group photo with her so-called friends. I used to shrug it all off. Marissa was a fitness trainer, 11 years in the field, well known on social media with clients booked out for weeks. I thought maybe I was just being paranoid. I fixed aircraft, worked fixed shifts, ate out of lunchboxes, and reviewed maintenance logs while she live-streamed yoga under California sunbeam. We had a 6-year age gap. I was 37, she was 31. We married after just 14 months of whirlwind dating. She used to say, "I don't care what you do as long as you love me and let me live the life I choose." Back then I took it as independence. Now I see it for what it was: indifference. I had emptied my savings to help her open her first studio downtown. She cried from gratitude. I remember it clearly, one of the rare times she held my hand tightly. But once the gym filled up, the distance between us grew. When I tried to talk about my day, how I caught a mechanical flaw just by sound, or how I saved a flight from delay, she'd just smirk. "I don't get that technical stuff. As long as we can cover the mortgage, I'm good." Part of me wanted to react, call her, demand answers, yell about what she'd done and with whom. But I didn't. I walked straight into the kitchen, poured a cold glass of water, and opened my laptop. In my mind, the puzzle pieces were already locking into place. I didn't need her to confirm. Everything was now clear. I wasn't hurting, not yet, just empty, like someone had pulled all the oxygen out of the room. 10 years dissolved into smoke by a message and a transaction. Every suspicion I'd ever had was now undeniable evidence. My name is Joshua. I'm not a lawyer or a detective, just a man who knows when a door has closed. What she didn't know was I'd already unlocked a few others, in case this exact moment ever arrived. Believe me, when a technician starts preparing, there's no reversing the process. I logged into the private financial system I'd built myself 3 years ago. It wasn't flashy, but every line of code was written during long nights in our old apartment while Marissa snored after exhausting livestream sessions. She never asked what I was working on behind that screen, never cared about the spreadsheets I reviewed after work. Her neglect gave me the time and space to prepare. No one observes more closely than the person everyone overlooks. I began dispersing personal assets in the 6th year of our marriage. When she posted her first detox drink sponsorship on Instagram, I formed an LLC under the name of an old college friend in Montana. She knew about the joint savings, the main credit card, the house fund. That was only the surface. I funneled modest amounts into various channels: stocks, real estate under the company name, crypto, and 2 legal offshore accounts in Iceland. Nothing illegal, just protective. I'd seen a colleague lose everything when his wife ran off with a friend and took full access to their small business. I wasn't going to be that guy. For every quarter, I tweaked the financial structure, rotated passwords on a secure device locked inside my personal locker at the hangar. Even the USB drive holding my crypto wallets was encrypted and stored in a bank vault in Chattanooga. No one, Marisa included, knew that place even existed. My younger brother Ethan works in data security in Portland. He's the only one I trust to audit my protection layers. 3 years ago, during a late-night call, I asked, "If one day everything collapses, can you help me keep it safe?" Ethan didn't ask why, he just said, "When you need it, say the word." The night Marisa sent that message, I said the word. It's time. Within 10 minutes, every primary account was liquidated and moved to pre-arranged locations, each with different security levels across scattered banks, independent funds, and cold wallets. Whatever she accessed, she only saw the outermost layer. The real money, the foundation I spent a decade building, was nowhere near her reach. I wasn't angry. That emotion had burned out long ago. What remained was surgical focus. That night, I sat in the kitchen, staring into a cup of cold coffee, pulling up login logs from unknown IPs across my backup systems. Marisa had tried accessing one of the secondary accounts I used during transfers. Her mistake was assuming I was careless. She didn't realize I was trained to notice everything. A loose bolt can ground a jet. One wrong digit in a maintenance report can leave an entire squadron on standby. She never knew I applied the same logic to my life. Around 3 a.m., I got a call from Ethan. All protection layers are intact, but I found a request for a secondary credit card from an IP address in Santa Fe using the same device that logged into your account last month. She's trying everything, I said quietly. One more thing. I noticed a connection to an online business loan platform. She might be trying to apply for credit under both your names. I leaned back in my chair, eyes fixed on the ceiling. Step by step, the next phase of my plan was taking shape. If Marisa was really using my identity to back someone else's finances, this wasn't just a breakup. It was a serious offense. The fears I once buried were surfacing with full clarity. I unlocked my phone and opened the fourth banking app, the one used to manage investment properties. Assets she didn't know about. Homes I had purchased at auction through a company name. Long-term leases I had signed with my secondary digital signature. Everything was still there, untouched. She may have walked out on me with a cold transfer, but what she never accessed was the foundation I'd quietly built for years. Now it was my turn. Marisa hadn't changed overnight. It happened detail by detail, subtle enough to look like normal evolution after a few years of marriage. It began with a growing obsession with her image. She hired a professional photographer just to take sunrise yoga shots. Then came sponsorships for organic food brands, fitness watches, even skincare products she'd never used before. I didn't object. Her career was thriving. I wanted her to have space to grow. But then things drifted far from what you'd call a regular job. She started attending week-long yoga seminars in Nevada, Arizona, even Vancouver. Her travel picked up. Her tone changed. Our rare dinners turned into her scrolling and texting strategic partners. "I'm building a community, not just a studio," she'd say, tossing a few bites of salad onto her plate. I watched her. The screen's light reflected in her glasses. She noticed me watching and gave a polite smile, empty of warmth. One night, I was in the living room with my laptop on my lap, checking transaction alerts. From the bedroom came soft laughter. The door was half open. She was on a video call with someone. When I approached, she snapped the laptop shut. "Just work stuff," she said quickly, her breath caught like someone who got caught mid-act. I didn't question it, not because I believed her, but because I needed to see more. By October, on my birthday, she took a 3-day trip to California for a retreat with fitness influencers. When she returned, she rolled in with a suitcase and a luxury gift bag. "Happy belated birthday," she said with a peck on the cheek, placing the box on the table. Inside was a pair of high-end wireless earbuds, trendy but soulless. No card, no handwritten note, just another branded product, likely a freebie for promotion. I thanked her and quietly cleared the dinner table. That evening, I sat at my desk in the dark, letting only the glow of the screen light the room. While Marissa live-streamed her inner healing yoga session from the bedroom, I reviewed her card history. A suspicious transaction caught my eye. Payment for a two-person suite at a resort in Sedona. She had never mentioned needing a premium suite for any trip. I printed the receipt and filed it away. She once told me, "You just focus on your job. Everyone has their own lifestyle." Since when did lifestyle become synonymous with secrets? The day she left, I checked the drawer next to our bed. She didn't take the handwritten card I gave her last year. She didn't take our framed photo from that lakeside picnic at Norris. But the old tablet I once gifted her? Gone. It may have seemed outdated, but it could have held photos, notes, calendars, and secondary banking apps. I understood immediately. None of this was impulsive, no rage, no emotion. Every step had been calculated. No confusion remained. I opened my final encrypted file and activated the financial surveillance system I had developed for my work. While she poured everything into curating a personal brand, I had quietly secured something far more valuable: truth. She forgot my birthday, but remembered every card cycle to fund someone else's ambition. She walked away, but didn't realize she stepped into a world where I controlled every moving part. That night I archived the new data, backed it up to an isolated hard drive, and shut the laptop. The air in the room felt unnaturally still, as if the house itself was bracing for a storm. The next morning, I logged into my internal system, entered the authentication sequence, and hit the command to freeze all linked accounts. Within 3 minutes, every supplementary credit card, e-wallet, shared account, and even the business card issued under Marissa's studio name locked. I didn't just restrict access. I shut down the entire stream. Next came the divorce petition. Everything had been ready since February, just needed a date and a signature. I forwarded the complete file to my family lawyer, Mr. Hill, a former state prosecutor who never tolerated financial impersonation. By noon, the call started. Marissa kept ringing. Her name blinked on the screen until I was exhausted. After the 7th call, I switched to silent mode. She hadn't needed words last night. 8 were enough. She didn't deserve mine now. The first message popped up at 2:13 a.m. "The account is locked. What did you do?" I didn't reply. 10 minutes later, another message came through. "Card won't swipe. Even the studio can't pull funds." Still no response. An hour later, her tone softened. "Must be some kind of mix-up. I called the bank. They said there's a fraud alert." I flipped the phone face down on the table and continued my video call with Ethan. His eyes narrowed through the screen. "She's starting to crack, huh?" "Almost the moment she lost control." "Good. I'm tracking the verification requests from her device. Let her expose herself." That afternoon, I drove out to the storage facility on the city's south side, the one Marissa had texted me about, saying she'd moved all my stuff there. The entry code? Our wedding date. Ironic. I typed it into the keypad. The doors slid open slowly. Inside were just 3 old cardboard boxes, a suitcase, and the outdated laptop I used when we first got married. Everything else? Photo albums, my father's antique watch, work journals, even the hand-built F-22 model from my final year of college. Gone. I knelt down and sifted through every sheet of paper in those boxes. Not a single photo remained. A chill crept down my spine, not from the cold, but from the realization. She wasn't just taking money. She was erasing every trace of me from her life. I stood, locked the unit, grabbed my keys. My pulse was steady, no longer angry, just razor-focused. I headed to a small coffee shop near the old airport, a place I used to file reports during overnight shifts. I ordered a strong espresso and pulled up the internal data logs, specifically the access records Ethan had just forwarded. Over the last 48 hours, Marissa had tried logging into 4 of my old accounts using an iPad mini connected to public Wi-Fi in Santa Fe. She used outdated passwords, ones I changed the moment I realized I was living beside someone untrustworthy. She was desperate. I sent the full log file to Attorney Hill with a note. Add to the financial fraud evidence file. By evening, Ethan texted, You're gonna want to see this. It was a screenshot from the Instagram account of a fitness trainer named Landon Cross. In the photo, Landon and Marissa stood hand in hand in a row of first-class seats. The caption read, "A new journey begins. Sometimes you have to give up stability to find the right one." Right one, wrong account. I smirked, closed the app, and called Ethan. Save me his latest promo clip. See if he's using any assets registered under Marissa or her company. On it. Looks like we're just scratching the surface. That night, I returned to the apartment. The air still carried traces of the essential oils Marissa used to burn. I opened a drawer and pulled out an old letter box. Inside was a handwritten note from my mother when I turned 17. She once wrote, "You don't need anyone to validate your worth. Just never let someone else define it for you." I placed the letter on the table and took a deep breath. This battle didn't begin the night she left. It started the moment I allowed myself to become decoration in someone else's story. Tuesday morning, Ethan sent me a compressed data file labeled cross_assets_flagged. I opened it and waited 42 seconds for the system to decrypt. What I found confirmed what I had long suspected. Only now it was laid out with indisputable clarity. Landon Cross, the fitness coach seen flying first class with Marissa, was drowning in debt. 3 business credit cards had been maxed out. 2 personal loans, flagged as high risk. 1 studio lease in Austin hit with penalties for being 3 months overdue. His social media was full of glamour and curated image. But the numbers didn't lie. What made me rise from my chair was the 6th attachment. A fitness equipment loan worth $162,000, signed 2 months ago. Under the guarantor field, Marissa Lynn Carter. Beneath the faint scan line, an italicized note read, "Collateral, 1872, Forest Pines, Da, co-owner, Joshua Carter, spouse." My hand slipped off the keyboard. That was the house Marissa and I bought 6 years ago. Jointly titled, but I'd paid nearly the entire mortgage. She had used it as collateral to back a loan for that guy. Without informing me, without asking, I skimmed through the remaining pages. 3 more commercial loan applications, each signed by Marissa, but 2 included my name under marital asset authorization. Under the office light, I examined every stroke. The tilt was wrong. The cross on the T ran longer than I ever wrote. No doubt, the signature was forged. I immediately emailed Attorney Hill. Attached, proof of forged signature. Recommend escalating to asset abuse and financial fraud. 12 minutes later, he called back. "We need to file for an emergency asset protection order immediately." "Already prepared. I'm gathering more documents from Ethan." "Good. If she signed your name, those loan agreements are legally void. But we still need solid proof." I went back to Ethan's data and opened the tablet access logs. The signature dates nearly matched the time Marissa brought that device to Arizona. No more assumptions were needed. She had tried to help Cross build his fitness empire on the foundation I bled to earn. Worse, she took the risk of impersonating her spouse to legitimize the paperwork. That afternoon, I stood at the door of a commercial law office on the west side of the city, where Cross had submitted loan documents. I had no appointment, but once I showed Hill's business card and asked to verify records tied to my property, the assistant only took a few minutes to call the manager. We stepped into a discreet, small room. The manager handed me a copy of the loan file with a cautious expression. I flipped to the second page, where my signature appeared. "Can you confirm this is your actual signature?" the manager asked. I looked him straight in the eye. "No, I've never signed a single document involving anyone named Landon Cross." The air in the room was thick, like a block of concrete just slammed onto the table. "We'll have to forward this to our internal legal team. Send an official scan to my attorney. I'll need verification of this forgery for the legal record." I left the building and stepped into the street. The midday sun baked steam off the asphalt, but inside my head, everything turned ice cold. This wasn't just betrayal. It wasn't just emotional deceit. Marissa had turned my place in our marriage into a financial tool, and handed it over to a man drowning in debt. I pulled out my phone and texted Ethan. Check if Cross used any account linked to other loans or made purchases connected to my name. A minute later, he replied, compiling data, found 3 equipment payments made with a secondary credit card under Maurice's name, delivery address, private storage unit in Lubbock. I typed the address into my map. It was a 3-hour drive from home. I took a deep breath, gripping the steering wheel as I sat in the car. This story wasn't over, and the person who thought they were stepping into a brand new life was about to face a truth that couldn't be erased by a few flashy pictures online. I arrived at the fitness complex called CrossFit Core Elite on Friday afternoon just as the stifling heat turned the grand building into a mix of sweat, hairspray, and ambition. A massive banner on the glass facade showed Landon Cross, smiling, both hands raised like he'd just won a title fight. Inside, EDM music thumped. A group of baby-faced trainers shouted cues at clients, performing deadlifts under nightclub-style lights. I walked past the reception desk and handed over an attorney's business card. The manager frowned and asked if I had an appointment. I answered plainly, I'm here to speak privately with Mr. Cross. It concerns loans he may not be fully informed about. The manager disappeared behind a glass door. 2 minutes later, Landon walked out with a forced smile and sunglasses perched on his forehead. His body looked carved from stone, but his handshake was flimsier than expected. You're Joshua, right? We should talk in your office. He led me down a corridor with dark wood paneling into a soundproof glass room. The walls were lined with awards, certificates, and pictures of strategic partnerships. I laid a folder on the table and remained standing. These are the loan files, asset declarations, and bank documents you signed with Marissa over the past 6 months. Some of them include forged signatures, mine. Landon flipped through the pages. With each one, his face grew paler. I don't understand why you're here, he finally said. It's simple. These loans used jointly owned property between me and Marissa as collateral. We're in the middle of a divorce and those assets have been frozen. She told me you agreed, that everything had been settled beforehand. Problem is, she didn't have the authority. And you're about to get calls from the banks demanding full repayment because the legal guarantee just evaporated. He leaned back, staring at the documents. His voice dropped. I thought she had this under control. She said she was managing it. Maybe she's managing social media. This, however, is the law. Landon clenched his fists. A second later, he stood and walked around the desk. What do you want, to pay off? Silence half the gym? Nothing. I'm just here to let you know the game is about to collapse. I looked him in the eye. You'd better have a backup plan, because once the banks find out the collateral was fraudulent, they'll seize the equipment, void the lease, and freeze your accounts. She said you were a nice guy, that you wouldn't do anything. She used to be right, until she drained the joint account and wiped out my belongings like I never existed. The room filled with thick silence. Landon folded his arms, leaning against the window. After a long pause, he muttered, Marissa said we could start over, that you'd stay quiet, because that's what you were good at. I neatly gathered the folder I'd brought. The silence ended when she put my forged signature on a loan document I'd never seen. Before leaving the office, I paused at the door. If you actually care about Marissa, tell her to return what doesn't belong to her. I don't want money. I want back the things that can't be replaced. He nodded, saying nothing more. That night, a box arrived at my temporary apartment via courier. Inside were old family photos, my father's engraved wristwatch, and the technical journal I'd spent 3 years compiling. There was no note, no signature, no explanation. Only silence, heavier than any apology. On my phone screen, a bank alert popped up. Asset modification request from account, signed by Marissa Lynn Carter, has been denied. Texts from Marissa flooded in for 3 straight days, shifting from threats to pleas. I was wrong. It's all a misunderstanding. We were a family, Joshua. I didn't reply, not out of anger, but because every word she used was aimed at the part of me that used to wonder if I'd done something wrong, been too cold, too distant. That part had already been broken beyond repair, by her. On Monday, she showed up at the company. Her face was carefully made up, sunglasses perched on her head, a tight dress clinging to her frame couldn't hide the tension in her shoulders. She stood at the front desk asking to see me. "I want to speak to my husband in private. It's personal." Valerie, my assistant, called upstairs. "I was in a meeting." "How long are you going to let her stand there in the lobby?" "Until she understands the lawyer is the only point of contact." I didn't go down. On Thursday morning, the mandatory mediation took place at a legal center downtown. The conference room was spacious, with a long wooden table and both parties sitting across from each other. On my side were Attorney Hill and the legal rep from the commercial lending bank. Across from us, Marisa sat next to a woman with short hair, glasses, and a face more exhausted than her client's. Marisa wore a light blazer, red lipstick as usual, but her makeup couldn't cover the dark circles under her eyes. She looked at me like she was seeing a familiar stranger. The defiant eyes were gone. So was the smirk that once made me excuse the inexcusable. The meeting began with a blunt statement from the bank. "We've completed our internal investigation into the loan file signed by Mrs. Carter on behalf of Mr. Cross. Conclusion: there was a forged signature on assets jointly owned, for which Mr. Joshua Carter gave no authorization." No one spoke for 5 seconds. "We've submitted the full file to the state prosecutor's office in accordance with procedure." Marisa's lawyer immediately requested a recess to review the file. Denied. Hill pushed a stack of papers across the table. "This is the divorce settlement we're proposing. If signed today, Joshua will agree not to press charges for unauthorized use of assets and signature forgery. In return, he will provide a legal waiver for criminal liability, on the condition that Mrs. Carter voluntarily assumes full responsibility for all debts tied to the disputed loans." Marisa scanned each page. Her fingers trembled slightly. Her lips tightened, but she said nothing. "You can't do this to me," she whispered. I looked at her. "Calm." "I'm not. The bank is. I'm just stepping aside." She turned to her attorney and asked something quietly. The attorney nodded, pulled out a pen. A soft click echoed as the cap came off. Marisa placed the pen on the paper, each signature landing like an irreversible full stop. The agreement was signed in front of a legal witness. The deal was done. She kept the studio, the car, the personal account that hadn't been frozen, but she lost the right to marital property and every financial privilege she once flaunted online. She looked up, eyes glistening, no tears, just cracks spreading in the silence. "I never thought you'd fight back like this." I didn't answer right away. I stood, gathered my documents, and replied, "That's what you always counted on." I left the room without looking back. That afternoon, I got the news one of the 3 banks had officially issued a repossession order on Cross's company. All loans tied to forged signatures were voided, and the equipment was being locked up for valuation and liquidation. The internal legal bulletin also confirmed the fake documents had been handed to the Civil Fraud Investigation Unit. I stood by my office window, watching strangers rush across the streets of Nashville. People who knew nothing about the story I'd just walked through. A story no Instagram post or promo video would ever tell, because when truth shows up, no filter can cover the aftermath. A silver gray pickup truck turned onto a dirt road leading to the northern outskirts of Asheville. A wood cabin sat quietly between 2 tall pines, about a 30-minute drive from the main town. I stepped out, grabbed the old keyring hanging by the window, opened the slightly sagging wooden door, and took a deep breath. No more fake lavender oils, no more live stream alerts, banking chimes, or midnight calls from unknown numbers. Just the sound of wind through trees and moisture settling into the pine-paneled walls. The cabin had belonged to a distant uncle who lived alone most of his life. When he passed, no one in the family wanted it. It was too isolated. But I needed exactly that. A place no one watched, no one tried to control. I repaired the floors, replaced the porch roof, mowed the grass by hand, rebuilt the kitchen shelves with solid American pine. No contractors, no helpers, just me, a toolbox, and long afternoons wrapped in silence. Ethan dropped by one morning in April, bringing hot coffee and a case of cold beer. We sat on the porch, feet on the railing, looking out at the forest canopy. Do you regret any of it? I shook my head. I feel the loss, but no regret. He nodded gently, no further questions. His hand rested on my shoulder like a silent affirmation of what our parents once taught us. Don't chase what no longer belongs to you, but never let anyone take what wasn't given. News about Marisa came through a mutual friend's social feed. She'd moved to Denver, reopened her studio under a new name, launching a self-reinvention campaign through cryptic videos. No one mentioned the legal trouble. No one knew she'd once been investigated for financial forgery. Landon Cross vanished. A month after our divorce agreement, his gym shut down for unpaid rent. He sold off equipment, moved to Florida, started an online training channel, claiming to be adapting to new market realities. They carried on like nothing had happened. As for me, I didn't need the world to see it. I just needed not to live in that world anymore. Evenings at the cabin came with no sounds except crickets and the soft crackle of the fire. I reread my technical notes, sketched model plane designs on old drafting paper, and made pour-over coffee each morning just to fill the kitchen with its warm, grounding scent. One day, I got an invitation to be a technical advisor for a drone manufacturer in Tennessee. They'd been partners back when I worked in aircraft engineering. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I packed a small toolbox, buckled my seatbelt, and drove out onto Route 129, the winding highway through the Appalachians I always said I'd take but never did. No map, no GPS, just a notepad, a stack of old country CDs, and miles of road, without pressure to arrive. I wasn't running, I was returning to myself. As the afternoon sun hit the windshield, casting gold across the steering wheel, I thought about something my mom once wrote in a letter during my college years. Don't let anyone else define your happiness. It isn't measured by someone else's eyes. It's measured by your peace when you're alone with yourself. Today, when I eased off the wheel at a rest stop deep in the forest, opened the door, and let the breeze carry the sound of the music out, I didn't need anything more than that. A quiet life, wide enough to breathe freely. Joshua had once been a man of silence, who trusted love more than the quiet warnings of his own instincts. But after betrayal, exploitation, and being erased from the life he built, he didn't fall. He prepared. His retribution wasn't loud or bitter. It was the truth, delivered with perfect timing. Now he lives simply among nature, free from false expectations and the pressure to be controlled. Not victorious, not vengeful, just finally, deeply in control. What do you think about Joshua's journey? Should he forgive or stand his ground? Share your thoughts below, and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, emotional stories about real family lives.